All right, fellow refugees, welcome to The Political Refugee. I'm Dave, and I'm here, floating aimlessly in a sea of political mediocrity, all by myself. I did a little flashback experiment today. I needed, I did some tweeting. I did a video earlier. There's a huge void currently on the political landscape, like a gargantuan 18-wheeler size gap in the political landscape right now, where a candidate could come in and take a little bit from the left, a little bit from the right, and then add a dose of aloha, use some nice language where people don't think you're a terrorist or a freak or too extreme. You can actually talk about how people ought to get along with one another. Tulsi Gabbard has left a huge void in the political landscape. And going back to this video where the night of this debate, Tulsi was under the weather on top of it. So her appearance is a little different to me. It's like, don't cross me, or I'm gonna slap you, and then you're going to wind up in the next town. I don't know. Maybe I'm making too much of that, but I know she wasn't feeling good at this particular debate, and her debate performance, I think, despite her not feeling well, her debate performance was awesome. The MSNBC Stu Jett asks her a question, of course, framing it, making her comment on her tweet regarding Hillary Clinton, where she said she was the queen of warmongers. One of the greatest tweets of all time, by the way. Belongs in the Tweet Hall of Fame, quite honestly, if there is one. So anyway, they wanted to know, so what is the personification of rot in the Democratic Party? And in case you missed it back at the debate, let me play this and then I'll do some commentary.
That our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests. I'm running for president to be the Democratic nominee that rebuilds our Democratic Party, takes it out of their hands, and truly puts it in the hands of the people of this country, a party that actually hears the voices of Americans who are struggling all across this country, and puts it in the hands of veterans and fellow Americans who are calling for an end to this ongoing Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy doctrine of regime change wars, overthrowing dictators in other countries, needlessly sending my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way to fight in wars that actually undermine our national security and have cost us thousands of American lives. These are wars that have cost us as American taxpayers trillions of dollars since 9/11 alone, dollars that have come out of our pockets, out of our hospitals, out of our schools, out of our infrastructure needs. As president, I will end this foreign policy, end these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest our hard-earned taxpayer dollars actually into serving the needs of the American people right here at home.
All right, and of course they're cutting her off because she made too many brilliant points. What Tulsi Gabbard was doing was pushing out as much information as she possibly could, because at these debates, she typically wasn't called on all that often, and when she was called on, normally it was a gotcha question, or it was something where she had to go on defense rather than offense. That's what makes that particular answer so brilliant, so awesome. And she didn't miss a beat. She took advantage of the opportunity she was given. Again, Tulsi looking a little fierce during this debate. Normally we see a few more smiles. I think a lot of her supporters at this point were thinking to themselves, you know what? Tulsi, just go for the jugular. Don't mess around. And she didn't. this was a good debate for Tulsi Gabbard. And if you go back and watch the entire debate, you're going to feel as though, again, the country itself missed a large opportunity to have somebody who's truly going to be a fighter for them. Somebody who understands positions on all sides and wants, again, not necessarily moderation, but in order to get things done, the way this government was created, and it was, by the way, the experiment, the way it was created was, the design was gridlock. Because if the American people truly want something, it's going to have to be a sustained push toward that goal. It can't just be a few rogue politicians over here deciding the fate of the entire nation. That's why, personally, I do not want to get rid of the Electoral College. I mean, I get it. It sounds really bad that, like, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She should have been president, according to a lot of people. But I don't think that Los Angeles and San Francisco and large areas in California should be deciding the fate of the entire country. Electoral college means that you have representation from every part of the country. And this, if you get rid of the Electoral College, you have everybody going to these large states and they'll never visit rural communities ever. It's just going to be about large cities. And, you know, quite frankly, I like to see politicians having to work, having to go to different states in order to secure the presidential election. So that's just my take on it. I know a lot of people are just, right now, it's, you know, I'm hearing all kinds of scary, crazy proposals that are out there. And if people truly do want to get back to normal, and that's the whole thing about Biden, you know, in a lot of brains that are, I guess, frozen because of Trump derangement syndrome, they just want to get rid of Trump. They don't care who they put in Trump's place. I mean, Mitt Romney right now could be the Democratic Party nominee. His policies are right there. He's pandered as much as any politician. And you know, he proposed the current healthcare system that we have now, his version of it. So, I mean, Mitt Romney could be the president right now or be the Democratic nominee, and people would cheer it, even though in 2012 he was branded as really bad and right-wing and Satan and so forth. So we have, the Overton window has shifted just a little bit. And that's why you need somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, who understands that extremism on any side scares the crap out of most people. I tweeted this out the other day, and it was as if I was tweeting out, you know, a foreign object that nobody could understand. I said, you know, if your slogan is abolish the police, you're going to scare a whole bunch of independent voters. And they were like, no, why? So, you know, it was almost as if an acknowledgement of either political strategy or political reality. Like, the reality that you see, you pretend doesn't exist. Like, if I tell people there's violence in the streets, they'll say, where? I didn't see violence in the streets. These are peaceful protests. And I go, all of them were peaceful protests? I said, some of them were peaceful, but some of them weren't. So, I mean, and we're living in this new, like, if you live in this echo chamber, right, and I've noticed this, because I've been in both echo chambers. I've been more on the right, I've been more on the left. And if you're in those echo chambers all the time, you're being lied to. Or let me put it in a better way. You're only getting half of the information. You need to get all of the information, because the right is never going to tell you the worst of the worst. In other words, all of these right-wing proposals that do nothing to really address a lot of these issues of poverty, they're not going to tell you that. They're going to say, hey, you know, opportunity zone, that'll solve the problem. And then over on, you know, the left, there's a whole myriad of things as of late where, you know, defund the police. What is that? What does that even mean, defund the police? And why did you start there? Why didn't you say, we could restructure the government in these urban communities to better serve the minority community, especially, rather than say, because you have this vendetta now against police, and that's going to boomerang. It's going to boomerang because, like, for instance, I went to Walmart. You know, it's my favorite store. I was talking about it earlier. It's the only game in town, and if you want to shop early and you want to avoid people wearing masks walking around, what you do is you go early. And I saw a police officer there, probably a sheriff, and he was walking through the store, big guy, white guy, and he was approached by a black man who said to him, "I want to thank you for what you do. I want to show my support for you, and stay safe out there, and I want to just thank you." That's the Tulsi Gabbard Aloha spirit, okay? It's a black man going out of his way to say nice things about this white cop. And I'm not making this story up. I watched it, and I was like, I had pride. I felt great for a moment that my community, we're normal people, we're interacting and behaving in a special way, but a normal way, where you would think that we could certainly make progress and get along with one another and not think the worst and not completely broad brush an entire group of people. But getting back to Tulsi Gabbard, she's the one that inspires this kind of connection. I'll never forget the video she did with the Afghan woman. Never forget that. When the Afghan woman knew that this military-industrial complex is bigger than Tulsi Gabbard, and it is. It's bigger than a president. It's bigger than... This is the weird thing another thing that nobody wants to really examine, is that you could find the greatest president. Tulsi Gabbard is president. The question is, could she? Could she change the culture? Could she sit there in a meeting? She said it during town halls. She said, "I'm not taking crap from anybody. No general is going to dictate to me what United States foreign policy should be." I have a hunch that Tulsi Gabbard wouldn't be hiring John Bolton to work in her administration, whereas Joe Biden might. Remember, Joe Biden gets along really well with Dick Cheney, so if he can get along really well with Dick Cheney, I guarantee you he gets along even better with John Bolton. And you're saying to me right now, well, Dave, Tulsi, she supports Biden. Yeah, she is a Democrat. She supports Biden. I think she wants to get in on the Biden action, as this is the new thing right now. And maybe Tulsi saw this way ahead of everybody else. But people have figured out, well, Joe's not doing too well. Joe's fading fast. So maybe we can hitch a ride on the Joe-mobile, get into the White House, and then start to tinker with things, because Joe won't even know what's going on. And his advisors, well, some of them are probably hoping for the same thing. That's what I mean, there are old, hardline Democrat people that are going to be there, because that's why Biden's the nominee right now. So they're going to be the big power players. But if they want an enthusiastic turnout, they're going to have to start to pivot towards some of these populist things. I've been hearing Elizabeth Warren's name out there again. Maybe the other two, maybe Kamala Harris, the kindergarten cop with the guy who wrote the crime bill. Maybe that's not going to work out so well. Of course, she's from California, and it was kind of a far-reaching reference to Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was in Kid. Never mind. That's where my brain went. Anyway, you had Kamala, and you have Joe. Basically, you've got, two different colors but the same flavor. So I'm sorry. That's just, wow. You want neoliberal on steroids. I don't think you get anywhere. Joe can't do his due diligence as president. Kamala Harris takes over, and that's like going from bad to even worse. I'm sorry. Look, it would break the glass ceiling. First woman, first African-American woman. This is all that the Democrats really care about. They don't really care what they do when it comes to foreign policy. They will run the most neoliberal, most destructive foreign policy. You think Trump is rough on sanctions and things like that? It's like they're holding Trump hostage with most of this stuff. With Kamala Harris, it'd be like, sure, where do we start? Let's go to Venezuela. And Tulsi Gabbard, every bone in her body says, knock it off. I've done this. Our soldiers keep doing this. We need to bring the resources home, especially in light of all of the problems we currently have. So do I miss Tulsi Gabbard? Damn straight I miss Tulsi Gabbard. Somebody asked her on Twitter, or said, can I write you in? And she said, well, my name's not on the ballot. And the person came back with, yeah, I know, but can I write you in? Tulsi didn't respond to it, but the fact that Tulsi was reminding this person that she wasn't on the ballot, I think she would normally just answer that way, trying to be the humble servant and the politician that she is. I do believe, however, that people like myself are running out of options. Tried the Green Party? Nope. Not only is there apparent corruption within the Green Party, that I can't confirm the corruption, but all I can say is that it's small time. It's amateur hour. It's like the kids at the kiddie table are fighting, and they can't figure out who's in charge of the kiddie table. Meanwhile, you've got the Democrats and the Republicans, and you got Joe Jorgensen, who is, I don't know. I think even though the Libertarians picked wisely in the sense that they have a candidate who is intellectual, who's done this before, at least in the vice presidential part of it in 1996, but somebody I think it's not quite ready for prime time yet, and I don't know if they ever will be, but it's a good, safe pick. It's a pick, like I said in the other video, it's like controlled opposition is what it is. It's like, okay, enough people will vote for Joe Jorgensen. Maybe it keeps Trump out of the White House. Maybe it doesn't do anything. And that, I think, is the goal, is that the Greens and the Libertarians have both chosen candidates that are not disruptive to the entire process. So it's up to us to figure out, do we want Trump, or do we want Biden, or do we want to stay home? That's really what this is about. You can vote third party. I'm not voter shaming you. And you can write Tulsi Gabbard's name in. I've gotten over everything. Because when you look at the political landscape right now, you see the abyss. Like I say, I'm floating in a sea of political mediocrity with no one in sight, just me and Wilson. That's it. In any event, this video makes me really miss the days where this campaign was in full swing and my candidate was in the ring and she was taking big chances. She was taking uppercuts and right hooks, and it just, some of them landed. In this debate, some of them landed very effectively. And again, she's a stateswoman too. It's not that she's just really good at debating or she thinks well on her feet. She wants to bring everybody in. This is what's different. And I think I may just be a moderate. That's where I'm at, because I want to see our government work. I want to see the left and the right work together. I want to see bills get passed. There are times where the Republicans will put a pretty decent bill forward, and the Democrats will slap it down because they're not getting the credit for it. And this political gamesmanship crap is really hurting the population. Tulsi Gabbard's different. She wanted to sit down with the people she disagreed with to try to find common ground. This current Congress, both on the left and the right, they don't want to do that. It's completely destructive to our democracy. For the people who vote and send these people to Washington, D.C., we feel betrayed. It doesn't matter if you vote for an R or a D, you're going to get the same thing. You're just going to get different talking points. You're going to get all the things, all your little pet peeve issues that you care about. You're going to hear about those during the campaign. Then when they go to D.C., it's going to be tribalism. Tribalism, well, we couldn't get it passed because the Republicans added an amendment to this, and there was no way we were going to allow them to do that, even though you would have gotten everything else you wanted, but they couldn't have any kind of victory during this process, because then they would look like they're getting stuff done. Oh, heaven forbid. So that's where we're at right now. Tulsi Gabbard is the ultimate Democrat independent, and I love her for it. I really do. And I wish she was still running I wish this was a different world. I wish we were in a different dimension. I wish we could turn back time. I wish there was no COVID, because she might have hung in there longer. There's a lot of I wish and could-haves, and yeah. So anyway, Tulsi Gabbard just tearing it up at the Democratic debate, and she should have been in more of these debates. I guarantee you her poll numbers wouldn't have stayed as low as they were if there wasn't a moratorium on Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, of all the candidates that you don't let people see, the most physically attractive candidate, and again, I'm hitting the stereotype here, but I'm just saying that, the most physically attractive candidate you don't allow people to see. Because again, people might actually like her, and then they might want to vote for her, and then, you know, who knows, she could be president. But we didn't get to see that happen. So that's my video, folks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Patreon, you can join up for $1 a month. You can also get content from my music channel at no cost. It's a perk of signing up for Patreon. You may have no interest in what I talk about over there, but it's like 2 channels for the price of 1, I guess. In any event, see you soon.